is deep cover. Deep cover is a horse that was preparing to race in New York and sustained a stress fracture in the left hind limb, and it's called a tibial stress fracture. The bone that was fractured is the tibia, and it's the bone that extends between the stifle and the hock. And so that bone runs down here, and typically a tibial stress fracture is located on the back of the tibia, back here, and is usually best diagnosed with a bone scan. In spite of the fact that you've kind of localized it as being at least above the hock, you're getting into structures that are so heavily muscled that your imaging modalities are limited. And you can radiograph that area, but the average tibial stress fracture may or may not show up on radiographs. So the best way to diagnose those is with a bone scan. Technical word for that is nuclear scintigraphy. And essentially what that is how that works is a radio opaque dye is injected into the horse's system, a period of time to wait, and then we use a gamma camera to image all the different areas of the body, the entire skeleton of the horse. And typically that radioisotope likes to go to places of high bone activity, high metabolism. And so there are a couple of reasons why a bone would have high metabolism. One is an injury because of healing. So you'll have the radioisotope go there. It can also go to growth plates, and so that's why it's an art form interpreting a bone scan, because your growth plates are going to light up because there's a lot of activity going, the bone is growing there. But it also goes to areas of injury, and in this particular case, the horse showed a high level of the radioisotope that had concentrated over that fracture site. So it was a pretty straightforward diagnosis. Once these are diagnosed with a bone scan, you can attempt to radiograph. You can radiograph the area. It may or may not show up as a fracture, but if it does, then you know where it is and you can follow up on that and monitor the healing. But at any rate, it's a pretty standard rehabilitation process, which basically just is rest. The bone is well vascularized, it heals well, and those horses have an excellent prognosis for return to racing. In this case, the horse hadn't raced yet, but that type of an injury can happen at any time. However, it is probably most common in horses that have been in training for 60 to 90 days, they haven't raced yet, or horses that are coming off of a layup where the bone hasn't been cycled enough, used enough, and so they're just coming back from basically a period of inactivity. My expectation would be that with, under normal circumstances, that this horse will make a full recovery and that this would not be a limiting factor in this horse's ability to race successfully. How does a tibial stress fracture occur? I don't know that we know in every case, but it typically seems to be a singular event. It can happen out of a starting gate, possibly unbalanced or maybe accelerating very quickly. I would liken it to, say, shins, buck shins. What that is it's the front of the cannon bone, mostly in the front limbs, most of the time, where the bone is trying to lay down more bone to accommodate the amount of stress that's being placed on it from training and racing. And so the same thing is happening in the tibia, in the hind limb. The bone is growing in that area, trying to accommodate the level of stress that's expected of it in normal training and racing. But sometimes if it gets behind and it's not able to accommodate that stress, there may be a one-time event that actually creates a fracture there. But the good news is you're looking at a very good outcome most of the time, and it's mostly just a time element. So rest, and then a gradual return to training.